guys, it's Brindley. I know it's not Monday. I know. A couple of you reached out, and I just want to thank you for being gracious. I had something come up last night that was a priority, and sometimes we have to reprioritize, as I always say, and execute. And that was something that needed my time and attention that was important to me. So I said, you know what? I'll just do it tomorrow night. And that always works out. It's so funny how somebody will reach out to me every time I'm late or I do it on a different day, and they'll say, Bren, I caught it and this was awesome. And the story gets better because I get more life experience. So tonight's topic is, and I put it in the title, and this is really funny because I didn't know this until I started researching the title, and I usually come up with these like a week and a half before I do them, so that I have like a week to do some research and really think about it and journal around it and meditate around it. And this line came from one of my favorite movies, Thelma and Louise. You get what you settle for. And what I want to talk about tonight is settling. And I want to go through a few things. I want to go through how I learned that I was settling, and then some things that I did to stop settling and to realize my worth. And I want to go through first, kind of why we do it, what makes us settle. I want to define settling for those of you that may not, even realize that you're doing it. And then I want to go through how you can recognize that you're settling, and then also how you can stop doing it. So, I want to read this to you first. Settling isn't the same as accepting someone's flaws. It isn't a noble martyrdom. It's trapping yourself in something that makes you unhappy and is doing so for it's doing so for little more than insecurity, fear, or a dependence on the opinions of others. It's a toxic thing to do, and it's something that's completely preventable when you know you are and become determined to live life on your own terms. Now, I am not just talking about settling in relationships. A lot of times we say, don't settle. Thelma and Louise, very female-driven movie. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that whatever you settle for is what you get. If you settle for your weight currently where it is, your weight is going to remain where it is because you're not going to want to do the activities to make that weight change. If you're in a job that doesn't make you happy, then you're settling, and you're going to get a job that makes you unhappy because you're staying in the job. Now, a lot of us know, like, we settle and it's difficult. Like, how do you get out of that? So a couple things I want to show, I want to say that this is how you can recognize you're settling. Number one, justifications abound. You're justifying everything. You're justifying why you're there. So you're justifying why you're comfortable at your weight. You're justifying why this job works and that you don't want to leave people and you don't want to strain people. And you're creating all these justifications as to why you're staying in the location and in the place that you're in. Endless irritations. You're constantly irritated by whatever it is. You're constantly irritated by your weight. You're constantly irritated by things in your environment, an environment that you're willing to settle in. So really acknowledging, am I irritated all the time? And if you're irritated all the time, you're most likely settling. The next thing is the inability to stop the comparisons. You're comparing your insides to everyone else's outsides. You're looking at everyone around you and saying, oh, if I could only be their weight, or if I could only look like them, or if I had their job, or if I could do and sound like they do, or if I could look like them. So you're just constantly comparing your insides to other people's outsides. You're restless. So you have a lot of restlessness. You're not comfortable. For me, one of my triggers is I feel it. Like, I feel it in my gut. And then it's like a thermometer, right? Like the heat starts to rise from my gut all the way up. And I've learned that I don't like the way that feels. I don't like being triggered. And so if I'm in a situation that's going to trigger me, I have to exit that situation. And sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes I can justify 7 ways to Sunday to stay. And to not walk away because I want to be happy, or I want to be right, or I don't know. I'm human and I stay. So a couple things. Why do we do it? Why do we settle? Number one is low self-esteem. When I started thinking about this topic, the first thing that kept coming up was happiness. Is that people that are truly happy with themselves and truly internally happy with who they are, they don't settle. They don't settle because they've defined their values. They've defined what makes them happy, and they will not compromise that at any cost. And so it's made it easier for them to not settle or to walk away from situations that they need to settle that they're finding that they're settling in. Number two is, we're naive. We're naive. We think we can change it. We think we can change people. And I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. But we're naive to the fact of why we're settling, or we're naive to the fact of what's really going on around us. A lot of times we can't see it. Others can see it. Yet until we're ready to see it and we're ready to listen, you can tell us 100 times, but we're not going to do it until we're actually ready. Rose-colored glasses. We tend to look at things through rose-colored glasses. I have a high level of optimism. So I have to be really careful that I'm not coming from a highly optimistic position and convincing myself of something that's really not there. I have to be realistic. And then the last one is fear of being alone. A lot of people settle in different situations because they don't want to be alone. They don't want to be alone in their job. They don't want to be alone in their relationship. They don't want to be alone, period, right? Loneliness is something that is difficult. And it causes us, the fear of being alone causes us to settle. So let's talk about now why it doesn't work. Why does settling not work, right? It might for the short term, but for the long term, why does it work? Number one is you're missing out on something real. When you're settling, you're not authentic. You're not at your highest and best self, and you're not in your true self, right? You're not following your true north. You're settling for something and you're compromising with your inner values and your self-worth in order to stay in that situation. And that will never end well for anyone. Number two is the cravings never stop, right? Like that, those comparisons, those cravings to be better, those cravings to be in a different job, that comparing your insides to their outsides and looking at their grass versus looking at yours, all of that is going to continue to happen, and it will eat away at you. And then you're stunting your growth. You're wasting time because you're sitting in a situation in which you're not being true to yourself. Number three, this was huge aha for me. People don't change people. You can't change anyone because you don't have control over anyone. The only person that you have control over is you. And you have to remove yourself from the situation. Now, sometimes removing yourself from situations may cause the other person and their journey to go through something that might cause them to change. Yet you don't have that power. I always say, I'm pretty sure your driver's license doesn't say God. And God's the only one that has the power to change people, right? We can only change ourselves. Number four is resentment will build. And you know what I say about resentment. Resentment's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And that's never going to end well for you. Number five is it will lower your self-esteem, which we all know as your self-esteem lowers and you start to compromise even more, you can fall into depression, inevitable, like really bad things can happen. And then number six is you're inviting fear into your life. And any time that we get fear-based or in a scarcity mentality and away from abundance and faith, it also never ends well. So now let's talk about how you can start to identify. So we've said this is how you can identify you're settling. You're justifying, you're irritated, you're restless, you're comparing yourself to everyone. Now let's talk about what you can do to stop settling, right? Tony Robbins gave an easy 4 steps, and then I'm going to go through a kind of a list of non-negotiables that you need to come up with certain areas of your life. So Tony Robbins said there's 4 things. Number 1, own your life. Know what your life is and own it. You control your future. The only person that can change or control your future is you. Number 2 is nourish your body. What are you doing to pour into your physical health? I'll tell you, a lot of my confidence and self-worth and changes did not come, like the last step of it. I would say a lot came, but the last step of it was getting my physical health where it needed to be and being committed to that journey. Number 3, raise your standards and stick to them. I have never had a situation where I have broken a standard and it has turned out well for me. And now I have to learn that if I do break a standard, I have to walk away in order to prevent the inevitable. Because if I broke my standard, I'm not in integrity, I'm not in my true authentic self, and it won't end well. Number 4, create habits that make you great. So own your life and then develop the habits that are going to make you that individual that can own that life. Now, part of owning your life and your needs is knowing what your non-negotiables are. What are your non-negotiables? Do you know your values? Do you have that integrity check with your values that you can say, this is in alignment with my values, this isn't? Know your boundaries. What are your boundaries? I spent a lot of time journaling around what I'm about to tell you. And this gave me a lot of clarity so that I could stop settling and I could get out of situations no matter how emotionally hard it was to separate or walk away. I was able to because I had my non-negotiables. So number 1 is your boundaries. Number 2 is your worth. Remember, we talk about self-worth. Self-worth comes from within. How do you define your self-worth? Do not allow anyone to take away your self-worth or diminish it. Number 3, how you live your life. How do you want to live your life? What are your standards and your non-negotiables for the way that you live your life? Number 5, what do you want? Do you know what you want? If you're in that job and you're settling, do you know what it truly is that you want? And do you know what you need to do to go out and get it? If not, figure that out and then go find the resources that can help you get there. Reach out to people that have done it, right? The last one is your health. What are your non-negotiables around your health? And then the last one is relationships. Everything that we do with human connection is based on a relationship. Your jobs are based on relationships. Our relationships are based on relationships. Our friendships, our family, everything is around relationships. I think this was a really important one, was learning how to set boundaries with other people that were close to me in my life. People that I didn't have boundaries with prior, that I had to put boundaries in place. And some of them didn't stay in my life because they wouldn't respect the boundaries. Yet that was okay because I spent more time and energy pouring into that and feeling triggered and feeling unhappy than it was worth. And sometimes that's family. And that's okay. That's okay. And there's family that I've done that with and then they've come back when they were ready to respect and honor the boundaries. So I hope this helped tonight. If you're finding yourself in a place that you're settling, feel free to reach out. Brindley at brindleytucker.com, Brindley at brindleytucker.com, or you can text me, 727-512-9098. Have a great night. Bye, guys.